And we are live, and we are live early because Sean has to do some dog bounty hunter stuff. I actually don't know what he has to do, but I live in a land of make-believe, so I like to make shit up. So he has to, in my mind, he's definitely catching a bounty and rocking this out. So we are ready to talk about the meta, dealing with it, winners and losers, what that means to you, and not just what it means to you, how do you adapt to it? How we are going to deal with it. What's up, brother? We got the Rhino. We've got Jersey. We got Ganey NG coming in. What's going on? Oh, we got some Manicon. What's going on, brother? Monica in the chat. All hail the double avatar Zerg Eldar meta. But we're going to chat about that. Let's talk about winners and losers first, because there's some big deals. Last night, I brought up the stats from 22 RTTs, 28 RTTs, an amount of RTTs, and 3 GTs that use the new over the weekend. And it really held up for this because there's certain really big winners and losers. And some of them don't, even though you might have been a big loser, cough, cough, Eldar, you might just be the best army in the meta. So we have to talk about that. I had to put on the colorblind glasses on today too. The light's a little too much. My poor brain couldn't help it. So what does it mean here? And I love the fact that there's also, Sean gave me a slide where I had to put on my colorblind glasses or I couldn't see half the things going on. So we've got a lot of green here. And I think that they did a really good job. And I know people are going to be like, you GW shill, but I think this is I'd like to disagree with it, but I can't, because we've got some things that went very, very, like Tau came out of I think they might be the #1 winner, coupled with Grey Knights and Death Guard.
100%. That is my top 3. You nailed it on the head.
But the thing is you're going to have to, and this is the reason we wanted to make this today, is the things that you're going to have to deal with have changed. The middle has been more truncated because of everything has been. You've got a lot of lists kind of fighting in the I can win this tournament GT, which means that your army is going to have to be able to handle more. It has to be a little more versatile, and the army might not change as much. Your play style has to be adaptable to each of these threats, because it's a lot different when I play Tau than when I play Grey Knights or a Votan. And you've got things like Death Guard and World Eaters up there that want to play a very aggressive board control, Death Guard contagions on you. World Eaters, of course, want to punch you in the face. Chaos Knights, with Towering gone, can now use things like Rampagers coming at you and basically bouncing from terrain to terrain. So we have to really look at these winners and losers, because we're going to start seeing more of that. And you already did see more of that. Now, yes, it was only 3 GTs and a lot of RTTs, but we saw a huge representation of armies that got buffed in those metas, and they did well. And doing well wasn't the bigger thing. The representation, like World Eaters, Tau, Votan, Grey Knights, had their number of games tripled or even quadrupled in those representation. So whether or not they're the top armies, anything that you're going to see a lot in a tournament, if you're seeing something and it's almost double digits and stuff like that, you just have to be prepared to at least play it. It doesn't mean that it's the best thing. It doesn't even mean that you'll have a good or a bad match with it. It just means you have to be ready to face it.
Yeah, I think that's very apt of where we're going with this. Deal with it. I know we had going over the data slate, and this is kind of like part 2 of that. It's, general goal. What should you expect going into this meta?
Yeah.
And that's this right here. This is it in a nutshell. We'll get to it in a second, but I know we had a comment in the chat. Just because you're red here does not mean you are a bad army.
I scrolled down to the next slide. Weirdly enough, it's got an Eldar, and it said nerf does not equal bad. Eldar are top 3 army right now.
100%.
They're just not the army that auto wins against everyone, and we'll talk about that in what should expect here. Let's scroll down again. So, because I want to talk about the fact that buff does not equal great. I do say that the Sisters army is still going to win at a good percent because they have so much trash now. However, they have so little damage, but
yeah, and that's kind of the points of these is, these are the 2 that stand out. But I'll also throw Death Guard into the buff does not equal great. What do you mean by great? Great is, I can compete at a major, I can compete at a super major for the top table and have a real shot at winning. I think that Sisters, Death Guard definitely can take down GTs, like no question now. Like if you are a good practice player with each of these armies, the nerfs to the top dogs and the buff specifically to you will help get you over that finish line to win that GT. But once you start getting down to, the nitty gritty of every matchup and you start running into players who, travel thousands of miles for the event and they've been playing, that same matchup hundreds of times, not hundreds, but you know what I mean? Maybe. They really practiced. Yeah. Well, if you're Brad, and then you start to see like, oh, okay, I'm still solidly in that, A to B tier, low A, high B tier range. And that's what's going to be holding me back.
It's a big deal on this. Matt made it besides the fact that he said, I feel attacked. He goes, Night Spinners and Karn for the win. And the funny thing, you see that is those got buffed a combined, 105 points together. They went up. What was it? The Incarn went up 80 points?
80 and then 20 for the Night Spinners.
No, not even, 20 for the Night Spinners. So yeah, we got 100 points. And I'm not going to lie, those just auto go into an army still. You're like, oh, they went up 100 points. Oh, cool. Click. And you just move on with your life. The rules are broken. And I've talked about that maybe extensively. You can't fix bad mechanics. You buy points. So they're going to rock still. If you have like a broken mechanic, it's still going to get taken. You have the only way that you can fix a mechanic with points is to say they're 1,000 points more. You know what I mean? Where you just go, you can't take it. That's about it. So either change the mechanic or just tell people they can't take it, I guess. So what is the meta and what are other people bringing? I like this question quite a bit.
Because this is a lot of people ask, well, what does a meta mean? I'm coming from another game. I'm hanging out here. I don't understand what people mean by the meta. The meta is not, just an always known thing. It's literally just what other people are bringing. It doesn't matter if, you have most effective tool available is what people reference a lot. If in your area, people are not bringing those same units, then your meta is different. It does not matter how much you plan to play against Eldar if all of your opponents in your local area play Nids and Grey Knights. The same army that's going to be good against those is not going to be good against Eldar, and vice versa. A good example, Artillery Guard. If your meta is full of Artillery Guard, I am worried that you will definitely get hit by indirect way too hard. And if you're not planning for that, that's really going to set you behind. So when we talk about the meta, we're talking about what do we expect other people to bring? And why is that important for building a list? Because obviously that's the entire game is can you build and pilot a list against whatever your opponents are bringing?
The big thing about this is I say it all the time. You have to be aware of the meta and not chase the meta. And I know that sounds stupid, but I'm not trying to counter. And a lot of people try to do that. They try to guess, and sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. And when you're wrong, it stinks because you brought a very skewed list that you thought was going to do a certain thing. So it's more of a be aware of what gets played in the events that you're going to go to. Well, obviously, you have to be a little bit more versatile. The larger the event, the more international the event is, the more people that are coming from all over the country and all over the world. So that's a big deal in that. Matto, $5 super chat. What is Mr. Rice taking GK to a tournament? They seem spooky to me, and I feel like they fly under the radar. I don't know how they're flying under the radar, by the way, but give us the answer. Tell us now.
So, if you saw our first look at list stream, like that, I'm like Brad. I hold nothing back. That is literally my Grey Knight list. I think it does everything well, and as I said on that stream, I'm only losing games to everyone by 1 point. So you just gave me 200-300 points sometimes back. I'm now going to win those games. Absolutely guarantee it. Like, if you just give any good player 300 more points in their army and they're losing by 1 point, they're going to start winning. That being said, personal tournament, I am going to Tampa, and I will not reveal what I'm playing. Brad knows what I'm playing. And the reason why is I did want to play all sorts of different things. Like, so what you can expect from me. I was looking at Tau are awesome. Grey Knights are still fantastic, like I just said. I'm looking at Space Marines. It's basically a bunch of land speeders and whirlwinds, of course, aggressors, and then Eldar, because I think Eldar are still great. So it is most likely going to be an RTT where I take Grey Knights to get a real feel for them in just like on the physical table, because a lot of what I'm playing now is on Tabletop Simulator. So sort of an answer. You'll have to wait and see on that one.
Let's scroll down then. What should I expect? Let's talk about that. We'll segue into that perfectly. Look at that. It was silky smooth. Maybe even milky. So Sean has been hanging out with Carla too much over here, being all shush, as opposed to firing fireworks off. You're like, how much would it cost to put my list into fireworks and explode it over the sky? So,
yeah,
this is a big deal. We're going to spend a decent amount of time on this because a lot of lists have changed. Eldar is still a huge boogeyman. However, you're going to see less, probably no, Wraith Knights. They went up in points. Their viability went way down because devastating wounds don't carry over, and towering went away. So like all of the things they abused are no longer able to be abused. However, a more MSU style with the Eldar, which makes me so happy. Even I might bring Eldar again. It's what I like. More trash. But you can still phantasm infantry models, and that's a big deal. Trash, man. But that's a huge deal at that, because you can still do the most annoying shit in the entire game of 40k, which is phantasm. I mean, your soul just dies just a little bit, but it doesn't matter because your soul is already dedicated to Slanesh, so you have to put it in the Infinity Circuit, so it makes no difference. So you're going to see that, and you have to be prepared for that. So your standard shit that you have to kill the rest of the Eldar army with, not the Wraith Knight, is still the things that you're bringing. GSC got hit really, really hard, but GSC didn't get any less killy in any one turn. Remember that turn where GSC dropped a bunch of guys down, got rerolls, got +1 to wound, and just picked up your army? Yeah, that's still happening. You know what I mean? Like, that is a thing. They don't get their things back like they did before, but you're also going to could be the guy where that gets high rolled and they bring everything back. Pajamas actually played a game versus Carbona and just got 100% of everyone back. And Carbona's like, hey, this is a test game. We should play, as if some of the stuff didn't go back. He goes, nah, I think this is going to happen for me all the time. Quote, Baramovich. But that army still bangs. Is it going to look different? Yes, because they're not just going to count on everything auto coming back. So they're going to look into doing more damage, probably a couple more smaller trash units to come in 3 inches away and steal some stuff from you.
Yeah, and that was kind of my experience with GSC at the start, was playing against this, hey, I'm just going to drop in and remove every unit on the table.
Yes.
And you went, oh, okay, all right, free rack.
I do have to go. Jeremy, so far, killing it in the best chat today. The sexual energy on screen right now is over 9,000. Indeed, my friend. Custodes. Less Custodian Guard, of course. More Venatari and Alaris. I think you're going to see a ton of Alaris. And I think Venatari with Lance and everything else, I think that unit was like bizarre overpriced. But I think it's playable now, and it feels pretty goddamn good, to be honest with you.
100%. This is something that we've been practicing with recently, so I will spoil that a little bit. No, I am not taking it to Tampa, so I can talk about it. I think Venatari getting to do the rapid ingress for free is just naturally where people are going to go. Yeah. You're already playing the Alaris because they got hit the least out of the entire index, and they were already probably one of the best units. I don't think they were like, slam 3 max bricks in your list good, but 1 for absolutely sure, and 2 very, very reasonable. Now you can just take that and Venatari, and you can kind of null deploy if you want.
Yeah, we were making a list on Sunday when we were doing the little hangout with the Patreons and just do a little list build, and we had Kara's list up board. We do it with one of the versions of it was double Alaris, double Venatari, and it felt good. It still felt really good, but for me, I actually like this style better. Yes, Custodes took a couple nerfs. They took a bunch of small nerfs. They did death by 1,000 cuts, but I like the way the lists look more than I like the lists that were just slamming down 10 guard. Is that a personal play style? Yes. But it gives you more, I feel it gives you more options to play with the meta we're going into, to be honest, also.
100%. And that's basically the list that you guys gave me to take to ATC. And spoiler alert, I only lost to towering models that overwatched me twice every single turn. Like, those were literally my only losses. Everything else I beat fairly handily. So with those not in the meta anymore, you could just take that. I had 0 10-man bricks, not a 1.
Yep. I actually think a big winner / loser is Knights. I'll go both sides. CK got significantly better. Imperial Knights got worse with big Knights, but I think they got better with it's basically back to a 9th edition playstyle where you're going to hit flanks really, really hard. You're going to use the fact that you can hide behind towering again, and you're going to use your overwhelming firepower for the Imperial Knights to hit flanks and go. And the Chaos Knights have more options because, well, they're not getting picked up because of towering. So you can bring things like Rampage or Spoilers and play a very aggressive play style and just tell your opponent, hey, I'm going to hide behind all these things that I couldn't hide before. Deal with it in a turn, or we're going to start soccer tossing your army.
100%. There's definitely a build out there that I think Imperial Knight players can go to, where you just take a bunch of Lancers and you just tank shock your opponent to death. Now, because the Lancer specifically says you can use tank shock as many times as you need to, that gets around all of the restrictions we put on them. So you just run forward and 3 tank shots on your opponent. And I think that's, while it seems odd now to think of Knights that way, the fact that Knights can hide and then the Lancer walks with its 14-inch move out and charges you and dumps a bunch of mortals on you.
And it's also what you're playing on. Are you playing in FLG? You're playing player placed? You're playing in GW? Because you're looking for those. It's more viable, obviously, on terrain that you can just walk through. You know what I mean? Those 2-inch pieces and stuff like that are considered obscuring. So they got a couple of those pieces in FLG, and they've got a lot of them in the GW sets. You know what I mean? So.
And obviously, this is where we list Chaos Knights as getting more of a buff because melee Chaos Knights can just run through the wall at you.
Yep. 2 of them at a time.
So keep that in mind.
They can hold hands and do it. So it's no bueno. Necrons took a sideways. I think the list just changed a bit. You'll probably see less Lich Guard. Excuse me. You have less reanimations and probably more warriors and whatnot. And weirdly enough, we have a random ad in the middle, which makes me want to punch a baby. I don't know how that happened. I didn't change my settings, and I don't know how to change them. But I think that the Necrons are just going to be a fantastic army that's going to stay pretty much where it is right now. I think you're going to see more of the MSU style with it. You're still going to see a Lich Guard brick. You're probably going to see a Warrior brick come back into play more. And you're going to see Tomb Blades. You're going to see more Destroyers. They just have a lot of stuff still. They're still super durable. They still play the mission really, really well. And they've got a lot of shit that can volume you the hell out in a meta that is, I think, is going to see more bodies.
Yeah, and a big part of what you will see is just being able to swarm the board with warriors specifically, in that they can, you're going to take the 12-inch guns. You're not going to really be worried about being shot by Necron the same as before. So that doesn't need to change. Like, you don't need to expect that suddenly Necrons are going to bring all these, all these guns. It's still short range. It's still going to move slowly up the table. It's still a little vulnerable to being move blocked early or being, night spinnered down.
I don't know if that's a specific answer, but it just is.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of is what it is. So if you're a Necron player, I don't think you need to scrap your list, start over. Just take the same style, play it the same way. Everyone else got a little bit worse. You basically side graded and stayed about the same, and you were already competing with them anyway. So don't throw the playbook out. Just keep going.
100%. Demons. Demons got less greater demons because the prices went up just for some unknown reason. I think you're going to see more MSU. You're going to see more of everything that can score. I mean, Nurglings are dirt cheap, so you're going to see lots of things perform move block, perform secondaries, a lot of their other small units to try to hold primary, and that's going to be what you're going to see more of, because the greater demons did just significantly go up in price. Wasn't sure about that one. Somebody got bad touched in GW. Was like, screw demons. Yeah, but their win rate's not that great. I said screw demons.
Yeah, 100%. I've been going back and forth with Kyle Treya on where you could go from here. I know we had a list or two put in the big DOG chat. I think there exists a build to play if you really like Tzeentch, to play a bunch of chariots that ignore cover and soul grinders, because they went down in points. And the soul grinders were already on my list of oh, this unit's actually okay. And they're just being incentivized more and more to take it. So if you wanted to try that style, you absolutely could. I'm talking just burning chariots, flamers, and shooty soul grinders. I don't think that, it's going to be, the absolute best thing you could possibly take to tournament, but you certainly could get wins with it still.
Matt, take your 14 points from Out of Bloaters and get out of my sight. Yeah, they're still bad. You're never going to take them.
Yeah. Please don't take Bloodletters. They have not changed. You're just going to be sad.
Yeah. Deathwatch. Deathwatch got a bunch of weird nerfs, and I thought it was funny because of the fact that I thought most of their performance was from team tournaments where they could focus into things. So I was surprised that they took that data, but Hurdle's list doesn't change that much, and he did great over at Nova, 7-1, with a strong list with Deathwatch. Now it's only bolt weapons for all of their strats. You saw some of the kill teams go up. I still think that this army is going to be just fine. What are you going to see with it? Probably a slightly sideways version of it, but I think it's going to be the same kind of thing that you're already used to seeing. They're going to bounce around. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'll wait for that one. Nids have a lot of different mojo coming on. You're going to see Norn emissaries. Those guys are broken. So.
Yeah, the first time it gets to an objective and you try to shoot at it, you're going to realize what we're saying, especially because, sorry to all the Tyranid players out there, they're probably not going to take any of the new detachments at first. They're just going to go with Old Faithful, and that Norn emissary is going to have a 5-up Field of Pain for the entire game.
At OC 15.
Yep.
Also, he's got the ability to, from basically being in cover, because he's just going to put a claw behind a wall and popping the strat for armor and contempt, he basically gets a 2-up save against AP 2. So
yep. Yep, you can definitely go either direction. I think it's just you're just going to see more of them. And this does not mean that, you shouldn't expect to see lots of little horde nids or something else. I just think in general what you're going to expect is there's going to be a Nornirus area hanging around, and no, you're not going to be hit with 3 spore mines every single turn for the entire game. They're going to use 1 to score secondaries, and you're going to get to advance. Everybody, orc players rejoice. There aren't just 3 spore mines preventing you from whying.
Exactly, your whole army. Tau, you're going to see more suits, more tanks. They got some huge price reductions. Things like the Sky Rays went down 30 points a piece.
Yeah,
that's just you're just going to
so
see
good.
that. Gray Knights, Purgation Squads. You're going to see more of those. You have to be prepared for that because, oh yeah, they went from wildly overpriced to, I guess, fairly priced, to be honest with you.
Normal. They went back down to normal. Thank goodness.
Death Guard has more of everything. Every list that I've made with Death Guard, and I've been making quite a bit because Matt Aaron's still trying to make his Death Guard magical and delightful. But every one of those has 300 to 375 is my new top of more stuff. And their new Contagion is bonkers down. The fact that you just say, hey, if you're within Contagion range, your save is 1 worse. They've got a decent volley of fire, of trash fire, plus melee. Things like flesh mowers, sweep attacks, flamers that are wounding on 2s on infantry. Exactly. Mike comes in with Nora's coming to take your lunch money.
Yep.
I like that list quite a bit. Is it going to win a bunch of GTs? Probably not. Is it going to be played at the mid? Yes. Can it spoil your tournament? Hell yeah, it can. Especially if you're just taking it for granted. And that's a big deal. I'm going to do that with a couple of the lists here that we have on this slide. Because we have World Leaders, less Lord of Skulls, more bodies. They went down significantly. I actually think they should have gone down more. But it's more of a thing. Votan. I actually think that you're going to see some more and more Votan out there. Again, another army that I don't think is going to light the world on fire, but it can really spoil your time because you could have 2 or 3 fortresses, 30 Zerks, double Sag, split the guys. You know what I mean? They have more stuff and they've got a decent amount of damage. You know what I mean? Again, are they going to win the GT? Probably not. Are they going to make you not win the GT because you took them too lightly and got pancaked by them? Yeah. So you have to be on there.
I did want to stop on that one because playing Votan now, I know we have a lot of Votan enjoyers that watch. You are trying to table your opponent, and your bikes are just trying to make sure that you get the points to actually win when you table them. Before, it was like, cool, I beat you down, and then you outscored me even when I removed all your models.
100%.
Now you definitely can take those units. You can score. You can, just pick your opponent's 4 best units and just say, my army's +1 to hit and win against you. And that's what they've given you. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Take your damage dealing units, take them out. Good luck, Votan players.
Yeah. AdMac got a little more of everything. AdMac's one of those things that's why I said when we're looking at a meta right now, I think you're going to see more bodies. And because we saw point reductions in a lot of things, AdMac's another one of those armies where I just look at it and go, I can make a balanced list and it's meh, or I could just bring a zillion guys and see if you have the guns for it. Because I don't know if the meta has shifted yet to it. And is it something I say to take? No. Is it something that might be on the table because people already have it ready to go? Yes.
100%.
T-Suns are in an odd spot because I think that they will feel a lot of games when you play against them, when you're looking into playing against the T-Suns, they will feel very similar. They have a ton of damage. It's going to be like, well, I thought they got nerfed a little bit. The nerfs come from because they have less stuff, as pieces fall apart, fall off the table, they lose a lot of their abilities. So their ability to continue to do damage over the entire game will take a hit if they're doing a trade war, because you have to have a critical mass with the Cabal points and the damage, and playing against them, you need to start taking things off the board that give them Cabal points, and then they lose the ability to smash you as much. So, excuse me. Sisters have a wild amount of bodies now on the board. This army, while it makes me angry that they don't have the nice counterpunch that they used to, so they still need a damage buff, they have the ability to score. One of the games I was coaching not that long ago, we were playing, it was Custodes versus Sisters, and going into turn 3, it was either ending turn 3 or going into turn 4. The Sisters had done 1 wound, but they were currently up by 1 in total victory points. And that's a thing, though, because they have just a million things to, 100%, the Sacros should have gone down.
Yeah, I would actually feel okay about Sisters if the Sacrosants and Junith went down enough points where you just auto take her. Now Sisters are getting just a ton of tools to play with. Or, we talked about this often about what we wanted. Just let Hospitallers join with Canonist to things and let them join anyone they want. Like, immediately takes the army from oof to, oh, okay.
Yeah, he's got a point too. The 30 Arcoflagellants is probably a thing, and I've seen people talk about it, but exactly the way that Matt was talking about is 0% want to paint that. You know what I mean? So, but it's a bodies list. Dracaric Orcs Guard, CSM, they're the same. They just are. Until somebody shows me something wildly different, they're the same thing. So let's talk about this. This is a big deal on this. Because your overall strategy has not changed, your individual list will to adapt to the meta. And when I say adapt, remember, you have a core concept of any army you're working with. And that core concept can change, but then you're rebuilding a whole army. What you usually want, again, is that 1,500 points that is rock solid, and you're adapting with the rest of it. So, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's really kind of the point is, and why I put these 4 armies on here is because these are the armies that if you're already playing them, your concepts aren't going to change. You already know, well, I either lost a little bit, I gained a little bit in the data slate, but most for the most part, I'm not changing what I'm doing. The big hidden thing here is if you are one of those armies that did change, you didn't get a new codex unless you're Tyranids. But even then, you didn't have a whole lot that changed. So your core strategy, as Brad said, is going to remain the same. And the units that are already good at doing that, you're still going to take those. It's just what individually changed for each person is, well, I'd actually like to score with Vespid now. I would actually like to score, I didn't have Gaunt's Ghost before. I'm going to take Gaunt's Ghost now. CSM. I'm going to take Bikers now because Bikers were already great at late game scoring because you just hide them behind a wall and they zoom out to score something on turns 4 and 5. Cool, those went down. I'm putting those in my list. So you're not looking for big changes. Please do not try to make big sweeping changes to your list because the meta has changed. You even saw my Grey Knight list from the other day. I didn't wildly change the formula for Grey Knights. I didn't start taking Dread Knights. I didn't start throwing a Land Raider in there. I'm still taking the core stuff I know is good, I know can play a solid game, and I'm just tweaking it just a little bit.
Any recommendations for when a 2-key Space Marine list is 5 Desolation Marines and half a Gilliman? The thing is I'm going to jump away from that. Like for me, the Desolation Marines, I'll pour some Diet Dr. Pepper out into my mouth. I'm not wasting it, but there's certain things that went up enough points where I'm not taking them anymore, and I'm going to adapt. I still think that for instance, Space Marine tank army is still super legit, man. A full armored, almost basically armored company, if anybody's old enough for that one, is Marines do it probably the best, to be honest with you. Their tanks are still really, really good. You've got things that are lone operative / shrouded, whatever you want to call them. Can't target within 12. I still love the Libby plus the Infiltrator unit is a must take. So there's some certain things that are amazing for you. Mike's right on this. In the Eldar, Swooping Hawks they are going to be annoying.
Yeah, the Hawks are definitely something we are taking a look at internally to see how much value you can actually squeak out of them.
I'm going to get real quick in the wall again. Caragos, you didn't really talk about anything Marines. Why? I didn't want to go too much into it because I think that we should be getting the codex this month. Well, we're going to get it probably first week of October if I had to guess. And that literally is a guess. Unlike others, I don't have anything that I get early, so I can't actually tell you it's 100% a guess. But the thing is with the, excuse me, with regular Marines, I think the big changes are you're not taking Desolators. They went up 40 points, and you can only take 5-man units. A 10-man unit for me with Boulder Discipline was a key piece, and I just don't think that's there anymore. At that point in time, I'm probably going to take Whirlwinds. I'm going to take 1/2 Whirlwinds, and I'm going to take, even at where they went up 10, I'm still probably going to take Lancers. I'm going to take Reapers. I'm going to take some speeders and things of that nature. The army still plays the way it plays. Most of the tanks are doing the heavy lifting, and then your sniper scouts not letting people try to hit you, the infiltrators telling people to go away, and then putting the shrouded librarian with them. That's still just happening. Matt, with the super chat. Thanks for the screen. Do you think more Termi and Termi-like bodies will hitting the table? I don't know yet. I think that you're going to see that more in some of the more assaulting armies. Kramer and I are going to play Space Wolves for the doubles at Michigan GT, and we were just debating on slamming down some Terminator bodies with Space Wolves. I don't know as much if I want those in my regular Marine armies, just because of the fact that the tanks are still the most efficient thing when you talk about damage output plus durability. So I don't know. I don't want to say no, but like, it's one of those things where if I wanted more Termi bodies, I go, wouldn't I be better off just playing Custodes? To be honest with you, they have better rules and better bodies. So I'm back and forth, and that's somebody that plays a shit ton of army. So if you're just playing Marines, I think that tanks are still the way to go. Tanks, scout snipers. And the thing is that I still think we're going to see a ton of mechs, so you never go wrong with a grav unit or two. 120 points, huge.
I'm kind of all in. Excuse me, Matt. I'm kind of all in on aggressors. Personally, with my own list, I just cut Desolators and added in a Whirlwind and 6 more aggressors with the Biologus. That's wildly close to the point cost of the Desolators. I think that's just kind of where you want to go with it. And as Brad said, sprinkle in some speeders, because the aggressors with their blast weapon getting +1 to hit off of just a normal speeder, just looking at some guy way over there, is actually pretty good when you're getting lethal hits and +1 AP. I would start there, honestly. If you're a Space Marine aficionado, I know we didn't go into Blood Angels or Dark Angels, everything else. If you're doing your thing already with those, I would say, if you took Desolators, just throw some aggressors with a Biologus in there. It's going to feel similar in damage output and in points.
It's going to also feel, I think it's going to feel better into the meta, though, because we're going to see more bodies. We just are. People got huge price decreases, and you've got armies that came out with Tyranids that, even when I'm making big guy Tyranid lists, you still end up with double gargoyles and double neuros and shit like that. You know what I mean? You're just going to see more bodies on the board. So, yes, I think there's a ton of play. We had the Playmaker working on his list, and we still took all those things in his list, and it was a very big tank list. He literally took it Astraeus, and we still had those other bodies in there. So, yes, 100%. Let's go to Clint real quick. Clint Frost, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Do you agree with Outer Warren that T-Sons and Custodes are a B tier army? Yes and no. And I know I'm giving you the politician answer, but like 1,000 Suns, probably, in the fact that they're going to feel like an S tier army sometimes. And then when a couple pieces fall away, they're going to dive off the face of the earth. Until you take those pieces away, they do a wild amount of damage. And they have a lot of ability to feel like everywhere on the board. They can get around lone operative and stuff like that. But when their pieces go away, Custodes, you're also going to feel the same way sometimes, because Custodes can have the ability to just steamroll you still, because they have great stuff like the Alaris Venatari coming in for free rapid ingress. Did they get death by 1,000 cuts? Smaller units where their faction ability doesn't exist anymore, and a couple price increases. Yes, but I think if both those armies might fall into the top of B, But they're gonna feel, there's gonna be a lot of times when you're like, those guys were insane and on crack cocaine when they said they're B, because they are gonna be able to punch high up. So even if you put them there, I think that they're there because they have internal flaws, but they're also going to have games where they just take those S tier armies and they put them up, they take them out behind the woodshed and they beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, so I think I want to approach it, Clint, in two different ways. The first way is general play. Like if you are just somebody who shows up, you got somebody who just loves to play Thousand Suns, someone just loves to play Custodes, I think they're going to feel significantly worse. I think they're going to feel like that B tier army, that mid B tier army where you're just, your rules aren't bad, but you're basically there just to hang out. In top level competitive terms, I don't think, they're really up to snuff anymore. Obviously, as Brad said, they can certainly compete. If you have the absolute best Thousand Sun player, they are going to beat up on, unsuspecting players who just don't understand the wide range of things you can do with Thousand Suns. Same with Custodes. If you are very practiced in how to ingress in and you have good game knowledge of where you need to be on the table at what times, you are going to take advantage of people who just position wrong, and then suddenly all these Venatari and Alaris show up and win the game immediately. So top tier sense, normal people showing up to a tournament, they're going to feel fine.
Yeah, and the thing is that like I said, it literally is, those are armies that can punch above. Should you win against them right now with the points and everything, if you're an army that has the things to take, probably. Can it smoke you? Yep, 100%. Let's go into some cliff notes here. And Kyle, I'm going to come back. I'm going to circle back to your question when we do the meta takeaways. Kyle made a great question of, with the new meta shakeups and point increases, how would you attack the meta? Do you think that putting more bodies on the table is the way to go currently? I always think that, but reverse that. Thoughts? So
we'll hit that at the end, Kyle, because I do have something very particular I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, and let's go over some of the cliff notes here, and I'm gonna run us through this a little bit quickly, just so we can get them all in, and then I'm gonna spend a decent amount of time on the takeaways. When you're putting your army together, when you're looking at your army, you're looking at your tactics. These are the things that you are going to happen to you all on the table. Eldar still fire and Fading Fire Prisms, still Phantasm Infantry. You have to basically set up your own versions of that. The tanks are no longer going anywhere. However, you might just be getting shot by Shadow Specters, Swooping Hawks, all game long kind of thing. So you have to, and or Wraithguard. So that's a big thing. GSC are going to play different, and I would say that they're going to look for exactly what John put here, which is huge one-turn big swings, that big damage that they were already doing, but they have to do it more precision. Custodes are rapid ingressing deep striking now because they don't have as much ability just for the big units to just stand there. So they're going to be looking for a more conservative, more precision scalpel type on that. Knights with obscurable big melee knights and several armigers are 100%. You're going to see that all over the place. Necrons. Can you take down 20 warriors in one activation? That is still something that you have to be able to do, and or move block them and don't deal with it at all. Demons have less and generally easy to deal with. That just made Kyle sad. Deathwatch took a sideways turn. They went down a little bit, but they're still just jumping all over the board, being very annoying. When you're playing armies like that, you have to. I think I may have said it once or twice. Pre-measure. You have to know where they can go and what those angles are. Can you use your transports, your cheap units, to push those units away? Sometimes it's fine to take a truck, a speeder, or whatever. Hey, I'm going to push these guys out because they still have to respect the 9 inches when they come back. Can I stop them from getting angles on me? Nids are going to be, which they should be, to be honest with you, bluff-wise, the most adaptable to the meta, but they're not just taking auto things. You know what I mean? I think that every time I made Nid lists, you can make 100 different versions of it. They all feel really good. None of them feel like they're world dominators, but you're going to have to be, when someone brings Nids, you're going to have to be ready for a lot of different things. So I'm going to slide 2, and I'm giving it over to Sean.
So you have Tau, and of course we have the so anyway, I started blasting. You were definitely going to feel like Tau is like their old self. They've got a ton of crisis suit bodies, they've got a ton of tanks, and they are just going to shoot you. And that is their game plan. You know it, I know it. Moving on. Grey Knights, you had to choose before. Do I want to play Librarians for damage? Do I want to try to stat check with a bunch of Terminators? And if I do that, I'm not really going to have these units that are going to hang out and score me secondaries. Now, you just get all of them. So expect Grey Knights to both have damage, mobility, and scoring, and toughness, all in one list. It's just exactly what they were looking for. Death Guard. They're a real army. You have to know how they work. I cannot stress this enough. If you don't know what Death Guard does, and Death Guard runs into you, they're going to have one turn where suddenly you aren't going to have a good save as you thought, and your army disappeared to all those lethal hits. You absolutely need to know how they're going to play. They're going to, yes, be slow. That's always Death Guard's thing, except for those bloat drones and Mortarion, which are actually pretty fast and are going to get up in your face. World Eaters. They're still going to do World Eaters thing. This is one of those big things where your overall strategy hasn't changed. If you are playing World Eaters and you love World Eaters, your strategy has not changed unless you're taking Khorne Lord of Skulls, which, while being the best competitive option, I wasn't even doing that. You're just going to run at them with even more stuff. So be prepared. It's like playing Orcs and Power Armor. It's basically their shtick. Votann, they're going to play similarly to Tau. They have great damage now. They have some units to score, so they can actually use that damage instead of having to commit damage units to scoring. You don't have to do that anymore. So that's where Votann sits. I think they're actually in an okay spot compared to where they were. Is it perfect? No, but you certainly can play your best slow Tau game. Admech, Brad mentioned this. I think that you're going to see more bodies. If I personally loved the Oops All Skitarii list, that was just what I loved to play. I made Crawley very sad with it several times. And of course, if you're still playing Breachers, you don't have to change the recipe. Just keep playing your Breachers. Everyone else got a little bit worse, so your Breachers are going to feel just a little bit better. Thousand Suns, we hinted on this. They're going to have great tricks, great damage, and great durability, but there's just less of them now. So you're going to have to be very careful as a Thousand Suns player. And if you were playing against Thousand Suns, maybe you change up your strategy a little bit. Before it was, okay, I need to, really measure out things. If you just start taking out their Cabal points, their ability to play the game goes way down. You don't really have to overthink it. I'll tell you, I played a ton of games with Thousand Suns. As soon as you lose Cabal points, you are very hamstrung on what you can do in the game. Then we have Sisters who are, still, I said before, even in last edition, Sisters score 88 points without even trying. I think that for the most part, that's fairly true still. You are going to play the mission fantastic with all these new bodies on the board. But a good opponent is going to know that you don't have any offense and is going to do some just absolutely ridiculous things like drive their army out into the open, and you're going to realize, oh, I can't actually deal with that. So if you're playing against Sisters, stat check. Please stat check. If you're not a stat check army, you can still probably stat check them. They are the most underwhelming for offensive output in a long while. Finally, we got the Drukhari, the Orcs, the Guard, the CSM. They are unchanged in the things that you were worrying about.
I'm going to hit on those a little bit because I don't want Carmona stabbing us, and I do want to get the on the wall here. Carvalone, Drukhari changes brought me back to Christmas as 96 when I asked for an N64 and opened a box to find an N64 hoodie. Sorry. One of the big things, and I had to throw this out here for Carmona. CSM didn't change a bunch, but CSM wildly raised up in the rankings, which I thought they were a good army already. Everybody around them got worse, and the people that got better, I think they play into very well anyways. So, I mean, the army literally had the Dawn going up a bit, but everything else was just fine. That army still puts out like a bonkers amount of damage. The only real hit on them is you can't indirect Overwatch, so you can't threaten that anymore. That's terrifying. That army just puts out nut amount of damage, and I think that their biggest predators were Eldar, Towering, and things of that nature, and they're gone. Same thing with Guard Indirect. That army is also terrifying because one of the biggest things was, again, towering, mortal wounds, and crushing on them. Well, they can't be seen. Those armies aren't playing anymore. So that army's scary as shit. I'm telling you right now, if you don't think anything about Guard, go second against an artillery line that also has way more troops and stuff now. You're not going to be super excited about what happens. That thing can bury you into the ground. It's a big deal on that. And the thing is, the Carmona might be right on that. He goes, everyone will be running a Chosen Brick now.
Oh, so, yeah. I think that there's, Carmona, there's not a... it's good to remember what we're doing is looking at the meta as a whole, and trying to get a good feel for it. And I think with CSM, while individual units are going to change, I didn't look at the whole, all of the changes and be like, oh, CSM is just functionally different now. They're pretty much exactly in the same spot. Everyone else took a dive, and we just if you wanted to, you could just cut one unit or downgrade into some Terminators into Chosen, and suddenly my list is the same. Oh, look, we're playing the same game, except everybody else is weaker now that I actually cared about. So that's why the Drukhari, Orcs, Guard, CSM are in the same spot. It's not from your individual lists aren't going to change. They certainly can. It's that from a meta perspective, what are we looking at when we consider the whole meta? Our plans for them, if we had plans for them, or our weaknesses to them are still exactly unchanged.
You should do with the Drukhari. Be awesome and run 30 Hellions and 30 Witches and see how things work out for you.
If you want a bad time, somebody is gonna have a bad time.
Then you take on Sisters and see how it goes.
I kind of want that now. I kind of want that really bad. I want Brandon and I to play Drukhari versus Sisters, and just...
you're not allowed to take all the Dark Lances. You have to take just Hellions, Witches,
Lilith, some Succubi.
Just charge in like a wild man. Now, what do we do with this information? I love this picture, by the way. Just everything's on fire. So let's talk about what am I doing with this info? And I go to my favorite slide of the entire thing we were doing, which is Towering is dead. The trash rejoices. Followed immediately by Indirect Fire is a real home in this meta. The trash is sad. What do you do with this? You know that you're going to, for me, yes, Indirect is a real thing. You're going to deal with it, but you can kind of set up way stronger than you did before. Without towering, just standing there, you can stand behind those GW pieces that have tiny little 2-inch walls that you can just shoot right through. Corey, you're just coming here just to make me angry. He goes, I think Flyers will have a resurgence. Boo! But this is the day of the trash has approached. You gotta score points. You have to be able to go to number 3. You need to make lists that screen out deep strikes now more than ever because people have more shit and they have more stuff they can deep strike, more stuff they can rapid ingress. Who wants to do that? Trash. It's just, you don't want real units doing that. You need more trash. Score the game, win. You have more. You should, most armies, but if you're not at the top, you got more stuff. So put it on the board.
100%. I think in general, what you want to be doing in this format, kind of looking at the meta as a whole, is preparing for those deep strikes, taking more trash. Yes, Indirect is going to be bad for you, but it might be legitimately the case for some armies where you just say, yes, I'm bad against Indirect. If Guard Parking Lot shows up, I am having a bad day. And then you don't run into it and it's fine. And suddenly everything feels perfectly fine. For example, even showing up to tournaments, I haven't run into Guard yet. I just haven't run into it. There's not a whole lot of Guard players currently in my area.
Feels rough. Hold on, we got Chazzy Bear with the super chat. $5. Libby, two Libbies, Crow, 10 Terminators, 2x5 strikes, 10 Paladins, 2x5 Spurgation, a 10-man Purifier unit for Crow to hang out in. What would you change or GK list would you take to a GT to win it? That's actually fairly close. I don't like the. I don't think I would take the Terminators and the Purifiers, to be honest. But I'm also allergic to expensive stuff. So
Yeah, so that's more of a me question, I guess. So I like Crow and the Purifiers, but Brett is right. If you are going to do the Librarians and the Termies and Purifiers, you're kind of like hitting all of the things you need to already, especially if you're taking 10 Paladins. And I assume those Paladins have Psi Cannons. So I do not see in your list either a Grandmaster or a Brotherhood Captain. I would definitely take a Brotherhood Captain if I'm taking 10 Paladins, because you give their weapons exploding sixes. That kind of deals with the same kind of things you needed to deal with Purifiers, just putting out a volume of shots into somebody or a volume of attacks. I do like the 2x5 Purgation Squad. I wouldn't cut those at all. I love the 2 Librarians. Again, wouldn't cut those at all. Then we got to have somebody go with the Librarians. I have personally put Termies with mine, yes. But then for your list specifically, we're looking at Crow and Purifiers. And what are we taking instead of Crow and Purifiers? Crow could become that Brotherhood Captain. And the Purifiers, I'm kind of a split mind about it. You could take Interceptors just to have more push in the turns 2 and 3 area on the actual board. Or you could just, take more strikes. Again, I don't, because of your list specifically, I don't want to take, just like a third Librarian, because then we got to put in more Termies. I think just taking the Purifiers and making them more like trash that can actually stand on the board is going to work out better for you. I know that's a lot. Recap it real quick. I would go Crow into Brother Captain. I would do Purifiers into either Strike Marines or a Calidus Assassin and some Interceptors. Those are the exact changes I would make, and I would feel very comfortable taking that to win a GT.
I'm going to continue to do that on that. I'm going to continue to do fixed stuff but I will get a fixed I can't even talk. I will do a fixed time for it coming up here after I ask everybody about it. So let's go back to the takeaways. While Custodes have been cut down a peg, melee still isn't great, which means that certain armies you're going to have an answer for somebody just standing behind a wall on an objective if you don't have that melee and you don't have that volume of indirect that it takes. So you have to look at that in your list and say, well, what happens if somebody just stands there? So,
yep.
So it is a big deal on that. So, and we might do another Fireside Brad chat fairly soon also for the YouTubers where we just talk about things in general, a little bit like we're doing right now, but we want to hit the meta. So I want to really hit on number 5. Your plan still needs to revolve around pointy ears. If you're going to a tournament, just anything more than an RTT, 5 games plus, you are going to face, if you're looking to do very well, you're going to be playing the pointy ears. You're going to be playing elves. I'm sorry, but they just are. They did not punt them into the sun. They kicked them into orbit, and they just jumped in a ship and drove away. So nothing happened to them.
Yeah, I mean that's basically where it ended up. And I wanted to, Carmona, I did see your comment on what you would take more of an MSU CSM list, and I wanted to save my comment on that until we saw the slide. I think the problem right now, I know I'm going right to CSM. The problem right now with taking CSM as more of an MSU style is you're going to run into Eldar, who is now, definitely not going to take more infantry. That when you move out to try to force the trade, Eldar is going to move up, remove you, and then when you go to shoot back, that infantry unit is going to phantasm behind the wall, and suddenly your trade did not work.
And you're still going to see things like prisms. You're going to see whatever the tank is that's going to shoot you is going to fire and fade, and the infantry unit is now going to phantasm. And they still have just a wild amount of damage. And the Incarn still has the dumbest rules in the entire game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I should say that, too. If you bring a bunch of MSU units, 2 2 Night Spinners can still pick up stuff.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the Incarn is there. And
And
if
the
you're
thing
running
is-
a bunch of small units, whew, the Incarn's going to pick all that up too.
Yeah, exactly. I have to throw in this. I love that they did this. Matt 100% hits on the nail on the head. Nerfing Dark Reapers is the most GW thing of all time. Screw them for being good 2 editions ago. Just what? It's such a big deal on that. And the thing on this is that the bigger thing always is play what you want to play. Well, the rule of cool still applies. If you got great models, put them on the table. But now is the time to start trying different things, but also try different things, adjust your list. Don't make wide sweeping changes if you've already got a concept that you love. Change that 400 or 500 points out. But you know that you're going to play against different things on the table. The meta has changed. I really do agree that I think we're going to have more of an any given Sunday type thing. I stole that from Matt. Because I think you're going to see more variety that's out there, which means your army has to be more versatile. So don't chase the meta, be aware of the meta.
Yeah, I think that is a big. I should have put that on the takeaway slide. I'm sorry, everybody. I fell down on that one. Yeah, definitely do not go for these wide sweeping changes. A lot has changed, yes, but the units that are good are still good. We didn't have, a ton of core data sheet changes. So if your units were awesome, they're still awesome. If your units are bad, they're probably still bad, but you can check if they dropped enough points, then consider taking a few and see how they work for you. Not just because somebody like Brad or I tells you to take them, but things like Nurglings. Nurglings are always going to be great just because they're cheap and they do lots of random, they have lots of random value as a model on the table. And if you can look at your army taking a few more of those because you got points drops, I'd say generally that's a good plan because it's going to make it easier for you to hit this number 3 bullet point of I need to screen my opponent out. Everybody's going to be deep striking and moving around the table a lot. I want to have lots of small units that can do that. Crude Ox Riders, Crude Hounds can do the same thing. Let's see, what's another good one? Prosecutors.
Crusaders.
Crusaders, yeah. Sorry, the entire sister range right now.
I was just to say, they're 47 units that cost 8 points. So
right.
It's just a big thing on that. You're going to have to deal with things. And the thing is that prepare, again, don't skew, prepare. This is not going to be a skew meta. Right now, you could have gotten away with just going, I'm going to go hard into Custodes and Eldar. You would have been doing all right. Now you're going to have to see a lot more things. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think for anybody who's thinking about, maybe you're a watcher, maybe you're an armchair player right now, definitely get out there now. I do not think it is completely unwinnable to play against Eldar with your army. I think before I definitely, felt some pain, and that's why Brad and I wanted to do this series is like really get people honed in so that when the nerfs happened, you could finally be like, all right, I'm prepared. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to take him down. Now is the time. I'm not going to tell you that Eldar are the worst army in the game now. That would be false, but you definitely should get out there and start playing because it is much better for the meta as a whole now that Towering's gone and Eldar have been brought down just a little bit to where you can really, say, I'm a good player. I'm going to use my skill to try to win this game I shouldn't otherwise win. Whereas before, I didn't always think that was true.
100% on that. And remember, everybody, stay milky. Queen's Wave.